Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Bobo LAU from Department of Counseling and Psychology, Hong Kong Shue Yan University. And it is really my honor to be here and being invited by RGC to share a bit my experience in preparing for the IDSC proposal. To start with, my research interest. So I'm interested in elderly issues, so I'm a gerontologist in training. And also I'm a health psychologist to start with. And actually, before I joined Shue Yan, I did a bit of postdoctoral fellowship with the Department of Social Work. And there, I learned to use an interdisciplinary lens to understand public health and community mental health issues. And this actually formed quite a solid foundation to my opinion for preparing my grants when I come to a faculty position in an SF institution. So my first grant, successful grant, is on FDS, on Hong Kong Centenarian Study, where actually 10 years ago, I was an RA in the first wave of Hong Kong Centenarian Study, and 10 years later, I actually got a grant for producing the second wave of it. And recently, like in this year, I'm also very delighted and very excited to be awarded an IDS on digital divide for older adults. So I think all of us can imagine, like during the COVID times, the older adults are pretty much disadvantaged in terms of the use of ICT and also its access. And this laid the foundation of our IDS grant. So, RGC asked me to see what are some keys for preparing proposals, and I think these two will be quite consensual. So know your field and know the world. So first of all, know your field. I think most of our we will be quite agree upon that successful grant will be built on identifying a clear theoretical gap, methodological rigor, and also your track record. So many times I think we have been asked by our panel, so what is the theoretical model? Like state clearly, what is your theoretical model that your study or project based on? And more importantly, is there a problem with that model and how your study is going to fill that knowledge gap? And for me, in terms of writing, I think it will be very clear and also very helpful for us to present theoretical models in figures. Like like the arrows and all the lines will really elaborate the relationships between different theoretical constructs. Moving on to methodological rigor, so this is a very vivid example of double-checking your proposals and also looking for typos. Moving on to methodological rigor, so a clear elaboration of your methods is very important. So be detail-minded and assume that a reader who reads the proposal through will be able to recreate your project. And in this way, it will be helpful for the reviewers to understand the feasibility of your project. So the kind of amount of money, people, time that you need, and with a very vivid creation of the project, with a mental image of the project, they will be able to judge with a fairer sense of how feasible your project will be. And also it will be important to highlight the innovativeness of your methods in relation to your field or your specific research question. And usually by the time we reach to methodologies, we are pretty much running out of word counts, especially for me, psychologists. So I think it would be very helpful to use tables to list things out as well. And lastly, track record. So it will be important for you to show to the judges and the team that you know and your team know well enough the field and have what it takes to take the project. So including your knowledge, your research techniques, experiences, and most importantly, networks. So not only academic network, but also social impact networks. And if you are trying now a new method for your field, I think it will be very helpful to have a co-PI or co-I in your team who knows the method really well. So next, know the world. I think we agree that social impact has become really important for SF grants. And so it will be important for us to elaborate the urgency and the importance of the problem you're trying to tackle. And in that case, the use of statistics and recent real case scenarios will be very helpful. And also, for us, it will be easy for us to understand the linkage between your academic outputs, say the kind of theory or paper or findings that you're going to have after your methods, and the impact that you are trying to deliver. But this kind of linkage may not be very intuitive for someone who's outside your field. And so I think it would be important to market your findings through different channels, engaging different impact channels, including press, or even KOLs, or even content marketing, expos, submits, and so on, so that you will be able to market your academic findings into a language and also into a context that delivers social impact. And in that case, identifying the right person and the network early on will be extremely important. So I think just now I had a bit of summary about what the theoretical or methodological rigor of FDS is. So what about IDS-CRG? So for me, I think what the following slide would distinguish IDS-CRG from an FDS. So first of all, IDS-CRG, we need to have a problem of the right scope. So for me, say maybe I will be looking at a rather narrow psychological construct in my FDS. But for CRG, this time we look at digital divide. And this is, I think, a right scope, problem of the right scope. So I will need an interdisciplinary framework to understand this phenomenon. And in this way, it deserves interdisciplinary methods and a team. So I will need a person who knows older adults well, a gerontologist, a person who knows the psychology and the cognitive development of older adults well, so a psychologist, an engineer who knows the ICT technology well, a sociologist and a social worker who knows the society and also the socio-ecological context well, and lastly, also healthcare people who can elaborate our impacts into healthcare realms, which are very important for older adults. And with this interdisciplinary synergy, this is key for collaborative grants like IDS-CRG. And other key concern would be, why do we not go for several consecutive FDS, although we understand it's very difficult, but asking for an IDS-CRG, given IDS-CRG actually got 3 years max. And if you're successful on several consecutive FDS, you're able to take your project for a longer time frame. So this is actually a very difficult question when we're trying to draft a proposal. And from what I understand from our previous colleagues and also our experience, there are at least two paths that you can go through. First of all, you can either argue that with your scope, you will need to have concurrent multidisciplinary studies that together come up with a bulk of empirical data from different disciplinary studies in order to answer the problem. And you have to show that this is multidisciplinary and this has to be done concurrently. I go through the second path, which our team believes that in order to create new indicators for digital divide, we will need to have a series of mixed method inductive studies. So in order to produce the academic output that we want to have, we need a number of different studies. And these studies are logically connected to one another. And this is a chain of studies that can't be broken. And this is why we go for an IDS-CRG. Also, we have to be mindful that with more money coming in, a larger scale of study than FDS, you will have more people on your team, people from different institutions as well. So administrative concerns such as scheduling meetings, financial arrangements across institutions, authorship concerns, and also how we can warrant adequate input from each co-PIs becomes very important. So these are all feasibility concerns. So you will have to, in your CV, demonstrate that you and your team has the experience of organizing such interdisciplinary and also project of such scale. So lastly, social impact again. So with larger amount of money coming to your project, I think it is very reasonable for any grant organization to expect more on social impacts. So it will be important to enumerate impacts for different stakeholders and different levels. So we are talking about different individuals, different communities, different professional communities, this Hong Kong society at large or even international impact. And in order to look for these impacts and also to deliver these impacts in an effective manner, it will be important to engage all these stakeholders early on. By early on, I mean the preparation of the proposal. So they will be able to tell you what kind of different channels that are effective in delivering this impact and make your writing of the pathways of impacts easier. So if you have baked a really nice proposal and you may be shortlisted for an interview by around August, and treat it as a terribly good sign. So in that interview, you will have 10 minutes, which is actually very short, to explain your multi-million-dollar project that takes 3 years. So be very concise. And this is the logic flow I followed through in our interview. So we start off with revisiting why of this project. Why do we want to look at digital divide of older adults post-pandemic? The hows of this project, what is the most beautiful, what is the beauty and also the innovativeness of the methods that we're using. And that also summarizes what kind of academic outcomes that we expect, and therefore the kind of real-world impact that the academic outcome will be able to deliver. So in that interview, a bit of tips. I try to gather a team that demonstrate interdisciplinary synergy, so co-eyes from different fields. I used a lot of figures, tables, visual elements to explain processes. And also, I highlighted real-world impact a lot, and especially in plain language that different judges will be able to follow. And most importantly, practice many times, because 10 minutes is really short. So practice many times, and also ask a person from your colleague who are not familiar with your project to do Q&A. So you will be able to review the logic or the explanation gaps. So I will end my sharing with this line of encouragement from Richard Branson. So he says that business opportunities are like buses. There are always another one coming. I think so as grants. So all the best and all limbs crossed. Thank you very much.